Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the world of one of North America's most dramatic reptiles. This is an animal that has absolutely mastered the art of the bluff. So, what exactly are we talking about here? Let me frame it with a bit of a riddle. What snake do you know that's part cobra, part actor, and part zombie? I know, it sounds crazy, but this isn't a trick question. We're talking about the incredible hognose snake, and believe it or not, it genuinely plays all three of those roles.
Okay, so the first thing you'll probably notice about a hognose snake is that nose. It's its most defining feature, and it's what gives the snake its name. But it's also a very, very special tool.
Yeah, scientifically we're looking at the genus heterodon, and that upturned kind of pig-like snout, that's its signature move. It's actually the only snake in all of North America with a look quite like that. And trust me, it is not just for show. It's built for something very specific.
You see, its entire body is basically a digging machine. That nose, it's the perfect shovel for digging in loose, sandy soil. Then you've got that stout, powerful body providing the muscle to push through dirt and leaves. And even its scales are special. They're keeled, which means they have this little ridge down the middle, giving it extra grip when it's burrowing.
And we're not just talking about one single type of snake here. No, this is a whole family of them. And you can find them pretty much all across the continent, from way up in Canada all the way down into Mexico.
In fact, there are 4 recognized species. You've got the eastern, the western, the southern, and the Mexican hognose. So depending on where you are, there's a pretty good chance you're not too far from one of their habitats. They're a real fixture of the North American landscape.
So all that digging, it's not just about finding a safe place to hide. It's also how they find their food. And that leads them to a really peculiar and, for most other animals, a very dangerous diet.
See, hognose snakes are what you'd call specialists. Their main course? Toads. For some of them, like the eastern hognose, toads can make up a huge chunk of their diet. We're talking up to 75%. And you have to understand, this is a meal that would be completely lethal for most other predators out there.
So the big question is, how on earth do they manage to eat something so poisonous? Well, they've got this amazing toolkit of adaptations. First off, their bodies are just built to neutralize the powerful toxins in a toad's skin. It just doesn't affect them. And second, remember their scientific name, heterodon? That actually means different tooth. That's because they have these enlarged fangs way in the back of their mouths, and they use them to deliver a mildly toxic saliva that helps subdue the toad.
But as cool as their diet is, it's not what they're most famous for. Not even close. The real story with a hognose is what happens when it feels threatened. This is where the show begins. It puts on one of the most elaborate, most dramatic defensive displays in the entire animal kingdom. Seriously.
The performance starts with Act 1, the bluff. The whole goal here is just to look and sound as big and bad and terrifying as possible. Anything to make a predator think, you know what, maybe I'll pass.
So what does that look like? First, it sucks in a bunch of air, puffing its whole body up to look way bigger than it is. Then, and this is the wild part, it flattens its neck by spreading its ribs, creating a hood, just like a cobra. It'll start hissing like crazy and even do these fake strikes, basically headbutting whatever's bothering it, but with its mouth closed. It's such an incredible show that it's even earned the nickname Puff Adder. Okay, but what if the whole I'm a terrifying cobra act doesn't work? Well, that's when it escalates to the grand finale, and this is where it gets really bizarre. It plays dead, and I don't mean it just lies still. Oh no. This is a full-on, Oscar-worthy performance. It'll writhe around like it's in its final death throes, then it flips over onto its back, mouth open, tongue hanging out, and, for the finishing touch, it releases this awful-smelling musk. It is just utterly convincing. And here's the best part, the real kicker. It is so committed to the role. This snake is such a dedicated method actor that if you try to flip it back over onto its stomach, it will immediately flip itself right back onto its back, as if it's saying, hey, excuse me, I'm dead here.
All this drama, of course, brings us to a really interesting and surprisingly complex question about the hognose's own toxicity. This is something that causes a lot of confusion.
So, are they venomous, poisonous, or neither? You'd think it has to be one or the other, right? But with the hognose snake, believe it or not, the answer is technically both.
And this really breaks down that surprising difference. They're venomous, that's the you get bitten one, because they inject a mild toxin with those rear fangs to take down their prey.
But they're also poisonous. That's the you eat it one. Because they actually store the toxins from all those toads they eat, which makes their own bodies taste bad or even make a predator sick. It's this incredible 2-for-1 chemical defense.
Okay, so we've got venom, we've got poison, we've got these insane cobra displays. What does this all mean if you, a person, happen to run into one of these guys in the wild?
The big takeaway here is really simple. It's all an act. Their venom is super mild and designed for toads, not for us. At worst, a bite might cause a little bit of local swelling, kind of like a bee sting. But honestly, they are so reluctant to bite people, they would much rather just put on their big dramatic show for you.
But here's the really sad part. That impressive, Oscar-worthy performance, it often backfires. Terribly. Because they look so threatening, people mistake them all the time for genuinely dangerous snakes, like copperheads, and, well, they kill them out of fear. When you combine that with habitat loss and the fact that they're pretty slow-moving, especially on roads, they're actually a pretty significant risk.
And this isn't just a hypothetical problem. It has very real consequences. You can see that while most hognose species are doing okay, they're listed as least concern. The southern hognose has seen a really sharp decline. It's now officially classified as vulnerable, and that's almost entirely because of these pressures from us.
So all of this really leaves us with a final important thought. The hognose snake is just the perfect reminder that in nature, looks can be, well, they can be incredibly deceiving. It makes you wonder, right? If an animal that puts on such a threatening show is actually this harmless and vulnerable, what else out there in the natural world might we be completely misunderstanding?